So in August of 2014, Phoenix, Arizona Police Department uncovered a massive smuggling ring. After weeks of investigation, surveillance, people going undercover and pretending to be illicit buyers, they raided a home and a storage unit and recovered $200,000 worth of Legos. You should have expected it. I planted it at the beginning of the service. There had been a highly coordinated cabal of people who had been stealing from Toys R Us, stealing from collectors, breaking into people's homes, buying things online. They had this whole scheme where they'd go into a store, they would bring with them a gift bag and slide it on the bottom of their cart. They'd go to the Legos, put them in the cart, find a quiet place, cut off the tag, put it in the gift bag, and then go return it, get the money, and then do this ad nauseum, plus also just straight up shoplifting, and then also buying from other people who were illicitly buying Lego. Legos are actually really big business on the criminal underground. You hear a lot about drugs and like Bitcoin and gold and precious metals and everything, but Lego is a way of smuggling money that is kind of intrinsically untraceable, right? It's not illegal to buy and sell Legos, and the collector's market is, it's famous for buying and selling at ridiculous prices. Kind of the way that sometimes rich people launder money a little bit through art pieces. The people who are one level lower than that are doing that with Lego boxes, okay? Right? There were some estimates that this cabal of people had done $4 million worth of Lego smuggling over the past couple of years. And this is not just a Phoenix thing. I found stories like this all over the country. There was a huge one recently in Portland that just got overturned. This is a serious, big problem because Legos have held their value better than almost any other investment. If in 1980 you had taken $100 and bought $100 worth of Legos, $100 worth of gold, and $100 worth of diamonds, the Legos would be worth over 5 times more than the gold. Yes, exactly. Legos are the best possible investment over the past 50 years. But before you go rifling through your basement to see if you still have your kids' Legos around, if they are opened, and God forbid played with, they are worthless. Well, they're worth less, at least. If you have like a fully constructed Millennium Falcon from 1983 or something, then it might be worth something. Actually, there was a Millennium Falcon that was unopened that sold for like $80,000 recently, I think. But isn't that so silly? I think this is maybe one of the silliest things about collector's items to me. And I had a relative who used to collect kids' toys, and his wall was covered with toys that were never allowed to be opened, and his son had to just look at them. He had his toys he could play with, but then there was the collector toys that you do not touch no matter what. Imagine being a kid, me going to their house and looking up and being like, this is a toy store and I can't touch anything. This is absurd. It's ridiculous. The money out there for nostalgia is absurd because it is only worth money when you deny it its primary purpose. A toy's purpose is to be played with. Lego's purpose is to be built with. And when you're done building the model, you either display it somewhere or you tear it apart and you add it to Tupperware to then be reformed into tiny cities and buildings and cars and people and animals. right? That's the point of toys, is to be played with, not to be preserved for forever. Society's got it backwards. And I feel the exact same way about religion. I feel like we value religion that is untouched, that is unopened, that looks perfect, still has the shrink wrap on it. Pristine. A religion that is opened and that is played with and whose parts are disassembled and reassembled in different ways. A religion that doesn't necessarily follow the instructions in the booklet, or maybe did follow the instructions but then decided that model wasn't very fun and so took it apart and redid it differently. That kind of religion, I don't know. I don't see that kind of religion being honored very much in our society. But what's the point of religion? What do you think? What's the point of religion? Open question. Control. All right. That would be Lisa. Controlling the masses? Yeah? Okay, Nietzsche.
Connect to God.
Okay, the other side. Thank you.
And spiritual growth.
As a way of connecting to God. Okay.
And growing as a spiritual person.
And growing as a spiritual person.
Although mostly it does what Lisa said.
Thank you, Candy. I can always count on you. So the connecting to God part, but then also like what does that mean for like life in community? Like connecting our relationship to God to our relationships to other people.
And I kind of think that's what I meant by spiritual growth, meaning that not just you on a personal level becoming a quote-unquote better person, which actually we all know doesn't actually happen. We just keep muddling along like we usually do. But to develop a network of people that you care about more deeply, more richly, and can interact with on a better level is part of spiritual growth for me. So that's, it kind of goes together to develop that.
So you can't do spiritual growth as a solo activity.
Right,
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Even the people that were hermits still have found, even Julian of Norwich found a way to talk to people.
She talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And her cat.
Yeah, so.
One main purpose is to reach out to the downtrodden and do what we can to lift them up.
Would you say there's a difference between religion and spirituality?
Yes.
Yeah.
Religion and faith?
Yes.
Is there a difference there?
Yes.
What's the difference there between religion and faith?
It's not control.
It's not control?
I do have it's not community.
What's that?
The community.
The community. Yeah. Faith feels like a personal thing.
I feel like religion helps us to engage with our spirituality, but our spirituality is not religion, but like a template for like practicing. So like a way of ordering it.
Yeah.
That ideally would give you freedom to explore and to do, but when it becomes the thing that you're worshiping rather than God, it becomes much more than the template and more than.
Yeah.
I think it's like our discussion about hawks. Are you talking in the specific about religion as an institution? Then it's got all the connotations of, like Lisa said, control. But are you talking about religion in the sense of a wider and more broad thing? Then it's the borders kind of dissolve. It's not, it's more about being an integral part of spiritual growth. So.
All roads lead back to ornithology.
Yes,
right?
they do, for me, you know that.
And I would say that spirituality is both communal and individual. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a huge component of individual because there's like an engagement with the divine. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Annie.
Religion is theology in a systematic, organized fashion, and faith is enacting our theology.
Can I tell you a quick story that's not in my notes from Saint Simeon Stylites was his name. He was a Syrian saint from I think the 3rd or 4th century, and religion was kind of, the religion he kind of felt was a little dry. It wasn't connecting him spiritually to God, and so he separated himself from people, and he sat on top of a pillar, which is a stylite. That's where this name comes from. He sat on top of a pillar, and he prayed. He tried to have this singular spiritual experience, and it worked. And he had this wisdom. He would kind of every once in a while spontaneously give a sermon, and people were like, "Wow, this guy gets it." And so they started coming to him for advice, and he was like, "Now I can't do my spirituality alone anymore because all you people are here." So he found a taller pillar, and he went higher, and then people likewise came to there and just yelled. So he found a taller pillar, and people likewise came and they built ladders to go up higher to find him. And by that point, he can't get down. It's too high. And so people were sending buckets up and down for his, waste, and also sending him food and drink and everything. And he spent every day, all day and night, up on top of a pillar. And so many people kept coming that they had to start posting guards around him so that he could have time for his own spirituality. They built a wall around the pillar to keep people away. His own mother was not allowed to approach the pillar. And one day he died, and he was up there for at least a week before they realized that he was no longer alive because they thought he was meditating, and he had just kind of ossified in that position. And it's this wonderful example of the fact that when we try to do our spirituality alone, community will always come into it, and it should. And that our religious teachings, anytime we try to make them too much about us, community just bursts out, as it is an absolutely essential part of it. But I think what I'm hearing from you all is that religion is not for religion's sake, despite the fact that that is often how we have treated it. The way that I think about religion is a tool. It is a well that my ancestors built. Long time ago, somebody dug down and found groundwater. And then people returned to that groundwater. And then it was such a reliable source of water that people put stones down there to make sure that the walls didn't cave in. And then they built upward all the way to the top, and then somebody built a crank to send water down, and somebody built a pump to get the water out and more, and every generation kind of added to the well, but the point of the well is to get to the water, not the well itself. And instead, we've gilded the well, and we've made it so beautiful and pretty, and we've worshipped the well. We have treated the well like it is the source of water when the ground itself is the source of water. Religion is a tool. We often have that backwards, I think. It's not about belonging to something that makes you feel good or gives you a community or just is a thing you go to once a week to recharge and then head out again into the world. Religions, church, denominations, doctrines, music, our collective wisdom, tradition, all the words and names that we use, they are all tools to help us get to God. They are not God in themselves. And what should it be leading us to? What should our pursuit of that groundwater be leading us to? It should be leading us to, as God said through Isaiah to the people of Israel, to sweep your lives clean of your evil doings, so I don't have to look at them anymore. Say no to wrong, learn to do good, work for justice, help the down and out, stand up for the homeless, go to bat for the defenseless. That is what religion looks like when it is being used to get to the source of truth, and not when it is being used to edify ourselves. And I do think that we can have a tendency in this church community, and I'll speak for myself, because we created this church community as a group of people who kind of took all of our old Lego sets and poured them on the table and said, what can we build together? Nothing's off limits here. You'll see our website doesn't have a set of beliefs. It has a set of, what's the word we use? Convictions that are open to conversation. And it can be tempting to then feel like we've made it, to kind of get pride in the fact that, oh, we're not like those other churches. We're not like those people over there who are so worried about the color of their carpet, and we have ascended all of the ills of the traditional church, and now we are the new and pure and perfect expression of it because we're not afraid to question and challenge things. But I don't buy that for a minute, because I fall back into those all the time. Remember last week when we drew trees? I can only draw one kind of tree. It goes like this, and this, and this, and then it's got a little knot in the middle. It's the same tree I've been drawing since I was in kindergarten, because I have in my mind the image of a tree. And Candy knows you have to break that apart. She's told me that a million times. You have to see it as compartments, as pieces, not just as the image of a tree, because I still have images of things that I can't undo. Maybe I'm not willing to undo. Maybe I'm not willing to break that box open and explore it. Maybe I'm not willing to criticize myself because I think that I am beyond that now. So when somebody accuses me of, I don't know, performative wokeness or something like that, maybe I need to take that criticism and say, oh my goodness, you might be right. Maybe I am just trying to say the right things that I was told to say so I don't offend people, and that I self-identify on the right side of justice and goodness, so that I see myself in Isaiah's passage as the people like Isaiah who can tell people what to do and not the people who are being told what to do. Transformation's hard, folks. It is hard. It is so very hard. But it is also completely possible. Just a couple of weeks ago, we hosted the Palmer Seminary Science and Religion Symposium, my big event I do every year, and we had neurotheologian Andrew Newberg. I love Andrew Newberg. If you have not read any of his books, you absolutely need to. His latest one, Sex, God, and the Brain, is mind-blowing. But in it, he writes that the foundation of all religion, as it stands, is mystical experiences. That's his theory. A person has a mystical experience of God or of an other, and then the attempt to translate that into something that's livable in this world is what we call religion. So we'll come up with rituals and rites and practices in order to get there, but it is that spiritual experience that's at the heart of it. And there's a fascinating chapter in there in which the criticism is always that you're actually having delusions when you're having spiritual experiences, that it's just epilepsy, it's just a psychotic break. You're hearing voices, right? What's the difference between hearing voices in your head and hearing the voice of God? Right? For many people who have never had a personal spiritual experience, it seems the same. And they look at religious people as psychotic. And some are. We might, I don't want to go there. But he has done brain scans of people who are having epileptic seizures and visions, and brain scans of people who are having genuine mystical experiences. And they are different. Neurologically different. And when you remember a delusion or a hallucination you had, it only shows up in one or two parts of the brain. We'll segment it. But when you remember a transformative spiritual experience, it is remembered in the same neurological way that a normal memory is. People relate it as being more real than the real world. And so I think that this is open to anyone. That this is one of the beautiful things about our faith, and one of the things I'm hoping about this particular community, that we are a people who are using all of our religion, all of our tools, that we're opening all of our precious Lego boxes and we're playing with it in an attempt to have real and honest spiritual connection to God so that we will be transformed. He writes in How God Changes Your Brain that it only takes one. It legitimately only takes one deeply unitive experience, what he calls it, where you lose your sense of self and you feel connected to everything, to the God that pervades all things, that fundamentally, neurologically changes your brain. Like your actual brain. Transformation is not just a metaphorical thing. It is literal, it is neurological, and it is a part of what we are doing. And I get asked sometimes, how's Open Table doing? And I think what people mean is, how many new members does the Open Table have? What's your weekly attendance? What is your giving like? Is it increasing? By what percentage? Because that's the metric by which we gauge success in religion. I know Lisa left, but that is a vestige of control, right? That growth clearly means more people, more money, more control, more programs, more. But when you create a messy community that is not super predictable and sometimes is weird because you're not making it super predictable, I don't think we can measure success that way. I think we need to measure success by stories of transformation, which are really bad for quarterly reports. Right? You cannot put on a spreadsheet a story about a changed life, can you? You also can't tell people somebody else's story of a changed life. So I can't tell people about the stories that I know from people. The statistics. How many spiritual transformations have you had this year, right? Yeah, and how many outward lives have you affected? You know, we threw Pottstown's first Pride Fest, a coalition of 3 churches, and then a couple other ancillary churches that helped as well. Through the first Pride Fest, we had like 500 people there. You know how many people I talked to that told me that the fact that churches held this and held it on church property felt like a turning point for them. I may never speak with any of them again. And I don't know how to put that into a spreadsheet to measure success. But I do know that we're on to something. And so, because that doesn't fit in a spreadsheet, and because we're a messy community, and because we estimate success, whatever that looks like, by transformed lives and hearts, maybe we could take some time here and share some stories of transformation. How have you been changed? How has God become more real to you in the past couple of years? What has changed in you?